Hi, guys. Today I want to look at why the international community seems to put so much emphasis on terminology when it comes to Gaza. So, what's in a name? For nearly 2 years, we kept hearing phrases like famine is imminent or there's a serious risk of genocide. Now the words have shifted. International agencies have declared famine in Gaza, and some groups are accusing Israel of committing genocide. But does that actually change anything under international law or the reality on the ground? Let's start with the definitions. Famine is declared under the UN's Integrated Food Security Phase system when these conditions are met. At least 20% of households face an extreme lack of food. Acute malnutrition exceeds 30% among children under 5, and more than 2 people per 10,000 die each day from hunger or related disease. It's essentially mass starvation across a region. Famine can exist on its own, caused by war, drought, or disaster. And when it's declared, the international community is urged to respond, to scale up aid and humanitarian obligations, but no one's forced to take action. But famine or mass starvation can also be deliberately created and used as a weapon of war, and that is prohibited under international law. And in the case of Gaza, some organizations say it is being used deliberately as a method of war. Which brings me to the definition of genocide. Genocide is defined in the 1948 UN Genocide Convention as certain acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. These acts include killings, causing serious harm, deliberately inflicting life-threatening conditions, preventing births, or forcibly transferring children. Genocide was first recognized as a crime under international law in 1946, partly in response to the Holocaust. To date, 153 countries have ratified the convention, including the US and Israel. The convention is the international community's promise that genocide should never be repeated. But sadly, it has been. From Cambodia, Rwanda, and Bosnia, which eventually brought some prosecutions, to others like the Bangladesh Liberation War, widely described as a genocide but never formally adjudicated, the Rohingya crisis in Myanmar, a case still ongoing before the International Court of Justice, or ICJ, and now in Gaza, genocide's being claimed by a prominent group of genocide scholars, 2 Israeli rights groups, NGOs, and this week, the UN's Independent Inquiry Commission issued one of the strongest reports so far. It declared Israel is committing acts of genocide in Gaza. After studying evidence and interviewing witnesses, including doctors, from October 2023 to July 2025. Navi Pillay, the chair of the commission, expanded on the findings in the New York Times. She wrote that Gaza's life expectancy had dropped from 75 years to just over 40 in a single year. She said starvation is being used as a weapon of war, and cited UNICEF's report that 1 child was dying every hour. There's also an ongoing case at the ICJ brought by South Africa in December 2023, accusing Israel of violating the Genocide Convention. In January 2024, the ICJ issued provisional measures asking Israel to prevent acts that might constitute genocide. But that case is still ongoing. Now, these are serious accusations repeated by reputable organizations. But are they just words, or do they actually set thresholds for action and responsibility? And if so, who enforces them? Now, as mentioned, when it comes to famine, there's greater international pressure to take action. But states that have ratified the Genocide Convention are obligated to stop it. In this week's UN report, Navi Pillay wrote, every state has an obligation to prevent genocide wherever it occurs. To do nothing is not neutrality, it is complicity. She pointed to steps like halting military support, ensuring humanitarian assistance, and stopping mass displacement. But who ensures these words are acted upon? Well, there's no global police force to enforce UN conventions or ICJ rulings. The UN relies on states to police themselves. It's largely up to individual countries to act, and the UN's power to compel them is limited. The International Court of Justice, the ICJ, issues rulings, but do countries have to comply? Well, all UN member states are parties to the ICJ statute, but just over a third of them accept its compulsory jurisdiction. The US and Israel do not. So, what are the other options? The UN Security Council can impose sanctions, embargoes, or authorize military action. But its 5 permanent members, including the US, China, and Russia, can veto action and often do. There are other mechanisms too, like the International Criminal Court, domestic prosecutions under universal jurisdiction, as it's called, or pressure through sanctions by states or blocs. But these can also face political limits, just like the UN. And looking back at historic genocides, some countries saw prosecutions, others only symbolic recognition. But there's a clear pattern. Justice and recognition almost always come late, sometimes years or even decades after the atrocities. So if the world looks away now, it's not just Gaza at stake, it's the future of international law itself. If famine or genocide can be declared but ignored, the words lose their meaning. It sets a dangerous precedent for other conflicts, where violating the rules has little consequence. That's it for this week. As always, I'm putting links to the sources and the reports I mentioned in this video. If you find these breakdowns useful, you can hit subscribe on my YouTube channel, DM me or drop me a note in the comments. Thanks for watching.